Today we're going to be talking about whether content or data is the primary driver in the monetization of online video. The use of first-party or third-party data targeting capabilities is playing a bigger role in the online advertising space. At the same time, more and more companies are investing significant budgets to create high-end original online content. The panel today is going to explore these two trends, which some people could say to some extent are contradictory trends, with a focus on sort of the present-day circumstances and what we see developing in the future. We have a great panel here today. It really cuts across premium content producers, aggregators, and operators of content platforms, and an operator of a video exchange and ad-serving platform. So let's just start with a brief 30-second intro from everyone.
Sure. Sharon Silverstein. I run West Coast digital sales for MTV Networks, or Viacom Media Networks now. And that's about 8 properties across music and male entertainment.
Bernard Ho, I'm the general manager of video at IGN Entertainment, which is a division of News Corporation. We're a males 18 to 34 centric network. Our flagship site is IGN.com, which focuses on video games, news, reviews, such as content like that.
Rich Kennedy, I run business development for Blip TV. Blip is a platform for original web series creators. So we provide distribution, analytics, and monetization for original web series creators.
My name is Teg Greninger. I'm Vice President of Product at Adapt TV. Adapt TV is a video advertising platform, so an ad-serving platform that also provides the Adapt TV Marketplace, which is an exchange for online video advertising.
All right, so let's jump right into talking about premium content. We hear a lot of premium content and a focus on premium content and online video, and that's where a lot of the monetization is occurring. So my first question is, what is premium online content? Sharon, since you're from MTV, we'll start with you.
Sure. I mean, for us, it's definitely our shows and our musical performances. For Comedy Central, for MTV, those shows that are on right now, Jersey Shore, I'm sure you guys have all heard of it, are doing great. And so that is definitely considered premium content. I personally think everything that we put out there is premium content because we really try to super serve our audience and our targets and speak to them in their languages. So that's what I think premium content is.
My take on it is that, if you look at a very general definition of it, it's, high quality content where you know the producer and you know the track record of that producer and you know where that content is going to live and you can expect it to be there, and the brand advertiser wants their name next to that content.
And for us, it's, we recognize that there's a lot of professionally produced content, and Blip is more of a tiered producer program where we have sort of a farm league that leads to a more premium league, and we have shows that are, like we've worked with Talking Orange, who has about 50 million views a month. And a lot of people would look at that and say, well, that's not premium, but it's aggregating, 50 million views, and it's someone who's doing something episodic and programmed, and in our eyes, that's a premium show.
I think there are a couple of definitions depending on what you want. I think that it's for some brand campaigns, so we're thinking about this in terms of advertisers and what advertisers want. They are really looking for an association between their brand and the content they're sponsoring. So obviously, sponsorships go back a long way, and back to the days of 1950s soap operas and sponsored programs. And I think that's one notion of premium content is the content you want to put a sponsorship on. You want your brand, the brand you're marketing, to be associated with. I think on another level, it has to do with predictability and safety. So specifically in the digital video world, I think we have a huge diversity of what kind of content is available for advertisers to put their advertisements in, and I think that advertisers, big brand advertisers, often don't want that kind of diversity. They actually want something that is more predictable and safer for them. And so knowing that the content is happening on a particular site, in the case of some of the MTV properties, for example, or that the content is coming from a particular producer, it's been made for television or professionally produced in some way or produced by some entity that they understand, I think is sort of a proxy for them for this sort of a safe environment. Both are valuable, but they're both very different things. So sometimes you really want that sponsorship, and sometimes you're just looking for safety.
Do you guys view it as, is it clear cut? Are there two categories of content? Is there premium content and everything else? Is there anything in between, you know, an episode of The Jersey Shore being streamed online and you just see footage of a adorable cat in someone's living room? I mean, do you guys see a middle ground there where it might not be the most premium content, but it's monetizable and it's of a higher quality than sort of a pure UGC content play where I think most people are seeing difficulty in monetizing right now?
I totally view it as a continuum. I mean, I'm sure we'll have other opinions, so I want to hear them, but yeah, we see it all at Adapt TV, so I definitely view it as a continuum, and different advertisers like different kinds of content. And if you're an advertiser that really only wants to be on the broadcaster sites, it's A, expensive, and B, there's a limited supply of that inventory. Like you're just going to be, you're going to have a hard time in some cases hitting your budget goals or your impression goals or your sort of reach goals. And so most campaigns that we see have multiple components. They'll be spending some of their money on super high-end stuff where they're going to have a really great association, and then they're going to spend a lot of their money on a broad swath of very nice professionally produced content that may be made for the internet, or it may be curated in some way, like some of the content you'll see on some of the sites like eHow or sites that are quasi semi-professional or something, where it's totally safe environment for them and the right audience, but it's not necessarily made for TV, and that has value too. It may be lower value, but there's definitely a price and a lot of campaigns that want it.
All right, let's jump into how you guys are packaging and selling your existing inventory. Are you guys, well, how many people on the panel are selling using any sort of first-party or third-party data targeting? You guys are doing some of that for video? Nothing?
Oh, we do tons of.
I know that you guys are doing that. So at MTV, you're generally just selling broadly. Are you leading with the premium content pitch?
I think it's definitely a sponsorship and a premium content pitch. When you have these temples, you just have people who want to be surrounded by them. So for us, we focus on our temples, on our premium content. And, I think when people come to buy MTV or Comedy Central, they know the target. They know it's a clear 18 to 34 target for males for Comedy Central. And so we feel like we already have that target there, that we don't need to go deep or further and sort of use data to really target them in a certain way.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's all about kind of having a consistent level of quality across our network. And if you want the additional targeting on top of that, and it's usually not demo for us, it's usually more product specific, like on our main channel, IGN. If you are an Xbox advertiser, you only want Xbox consumers, you can pay an additional premium to target just that audience. But for the most part, our audience is so concentrated in males 18 to 34 that you're hitting that demo with whatever content you're getting on our network.
Yeah, I think we use targeting occasionally. It's specific to the campaign and the objectives of the advertiser. So actually, a good Xbox example is EA wanted to reach Xbox owners and people who were signed up with accounts. So we did an integration with Blue Kai where we were able to actually find out who the owners were and give them a demo that they could actually just click on the ad, and when they got home later, the demo downloaded and they could try it out. And those work very well.
So, I mean, it sounds like you're all talking about generally contextually targeting it to somebody who, just by the nature of the video they watch, you have an idea of an intent there or an interest or demo targeting. And I think that's, it's pretty common across the industry. If that's the case, I mean, do you think it's really the content that's leading the buy, or do you think it's the audience and the content just needs to be over a certain threshold? Like, do you think advertisers are saying, I want to be associated with this content and that's the primary driver in their buy? Or do you think they're saying, I want to hit IGN's audience, or I want to hit an 18 to 34-year-old male audience that's interested in video games, and I just want to make sure I'm in front of content that won't embarrass our brand?
Rich, my view is that most campaigns are not true sponsorship campaigns. That most campaigns are campaigns that are trying to achieve awareness. At the end of the day, brand campaigns, this is awareness for a particular product, so that the next time the consumer is sitting in the supermarket aisle and they've got 25 brands of paper towels in front of them, they reach out and they pick Bounty. Why do they pick Bounty? Because of the years and years of dollars that were spent on helping them, understand the value of that brand. And if your goal is to try to do that, then you want to reach as many people as possible, and you want to reach them in decent context. You don't want to reach them when you're annoying them or in sort of unsafe or unsavory contexts. But at the end of the day, you want to hit your audience, and you want to hit them hit as many of them as you can, have a high effective TRP essentially. And I think that that when you know what your audience is, in the case of paper towels, I presume it's the person in the household who's responsible for buying consumer packaged goods, typically the mom and so on. And that's what the RFP says on it. And one good way to try to hit that group is to use to target programming that is attractive to that kind of audience. Another way to do it is to use sort of cookie-based data. But the liability of cookie-based data, it's a great promise. It sounds wonderful to just hit the women in the household with cookie-based data. The liability, as I'm sure everyone here on this panel knows, is that the coverage of these cookie data sources is just so low that you're not going to be able to get the broad reach and brand awareness that you're looking for if that's the way you choose to go. So typically you're using content, topics, or whatever you want to call it, as a proxy for audience so you can go ahead and hit it.
And Ted, could you give a rough estimate of the percentage of impressions running through your exchange where there actually is cookie-level data targeting associated with the campaign, and is it something that you see increasing recently?
We actually, so little shameless plug, we released the Adapt TV Digiday State of the Video Industry report today, and you can download it from our website. We actually asked these kinds of questions, and we actually showed a little bit of data from Adapt TV in our marketplace as well, in addition to survey data. And people, in Adapt TV, cookie targeting has gone way up. So almost everything is user data targeted in some way, or not everything, but a very large fraction, more than 50%. I think it's between 50 and 75%. I'm not sure. I don't remember the number exactly. That's the number of campaigns that have some targeting associated with them. Typically, the number of impressions that are actually delivered using the targeted portion of the campaign is much smaller, and the reason being the coverage gap that we just talked about. It's a huge trend, though.
And the coverage gap is just an issue of there being a scarcity of video inventory overall?
No, it's an issue of the fact that we collect data from users in that it's hard to collect good demographic data from users, and it's hard to use it for advertising because of users' privacy concerns generally, right? I think there are some providers on the web who know all of our age and gender perfectly. Facebook comes to mind. Google's probably another one. But generally, they can't or won't use that data for the purpose of targeting. So what we have to do is make do with registration data that comes from merchants and so on. And just the number of people in which we have that kind of demographic registration data is very small.
And what's everyone's point of view if, right now, I think, do you guys see a current challenge now to being able to monetize UGC content? Right, I know you guys aren't running it, but do you think there's a market right now to be able to run branded CPM pre-rolls in front of UGC content?
Us at IGN, we've actually made a conscious decision not to run UGC. And in the instances that we have, on occasion, running, large kind of user submission contests and things like that, we'll just not run ads on them. I think it goes back to just the brand safety issue. I think that, where IGN is kind of plays in the ad market is that we offer a high level of just quality across the board so that the advertiser kind of knows what they're buying into. And when there's anything such as UGC, we'll just not run ads on it just to be safe.
Same goes for us. I mean, we don't run any UGC. I mean, our target comes to us because they want quality content and they want to see what MTV is doing because it's cool. So they typically, it's not something that we do. When we've done UGC, it hasn't been successful, so we've made the decision not to do it as well.
Yeah, we don't really, I mean, our shows, so people upload shows to our site, and we have a content team that curates the channel and curates a lot of that programming, and also gives quality ratings to things. So we typically have a cutoff for quality, and there's a small bucket of things that are, they're not really user gen, but they're things we wouldn't advertise against.
Right, but I think Blip is a good example though, right? Because you're playing in a fairly wide spectrum, right? You have some really, really professionally produced content, and you have some stuff that's more, I would call it grittier, but really good content. Some of it has a big following.
Yeah.
Are you guys packaging your audience as a way to sell across that content? I mean, I think you guys are doing an amazing job of selling into kind of YouTube all-star type content and really interesting content, but it's not content that you're going to find on TV. And how are you going out and pitching that? Is it your...
We position it, I think, the sales team goes out and really presents it as a pyramid, and at the top of the pyramid they give professional content, and Hulu as the primary, top tier, with Blip and original web series sitting in the middle, and then user gen sitting at the bottom. So we really talk about having a well-lit, safe environment for advertisers, while at the same time having some more experimental, cutting-edge content that wasn't produced by a Hollywood studio.
And Tag, are you seeing, like, with the emergence of being able to do data targeting, I know it's early days, but are you seeing any impact on publishers who are playing more in the UGC space or less traditional professional content? Do you see it as a way for them to increase the value of their content, the value of their inventory, by being able to say, hey, this stuff might not be on TV, but look at our reach in 12 to 24 or behavioral targeted info that makes it more valuable to advertisers?
So I'll start by saying I don't think any advertiser, or very few, not any brand advertiser, wants to be in objectionable content, right? There's no, and being in an environment where you can't control that means it's just totally unacceptable. I think you're not going to get started with a brand advertiser. That said, because as I said before, I think there is sort of a gray area, and I think there are a number of sites that have, for example, some user-submitted stuff that's curated, for example, and it's part of their own business and their business processes, their business rules, to make sure that they're displaying content that has been completely reviewed by their own team first. And to me, yes, that's user-generated officially by the official title, but it's perfectly brand safe. It may not be an awesome opportunity for some sort of big sponsorship because it's not branded content in some way, or it's not premium per se. But it is safe and it is acceptable for brand advertisers. And depends on the advertiser. There are advertisers who spend a lot of money, by the way. And for example, Reckitt Benckiser comes to mind, who would like to buy video ads at a relatively inexpensive rate, but have high reach, and they're less sensitive about exactly what content they're in. They're just one example, but they're famous for doing it, I think, in the industry. And there are many others. I think a number of the brands that are targeted more at young teenage demographic, for example, are like Axe body spray, comes to mind, are very happy to be in a wider range of content. It doesn't have to be TV quality, professionally produced. It just has to hit the right audience. So it depends on the brand. And I think there is a price except for content that's completely unmoderated and risky, I think there's a price for all the other grades of content. And you'd be surprised, actually, folks with good, moderated, user-submitted content, I think can command very decent CPMs and have a good business. I'm sure the CPMs are still a fraction of what you make at MTV, but it doesn't mean it's not a good business.
What's ballpark of a decent CPM?
Okay, so actually we do have a slide on this, and I would normally never pull anything out, but because we surveyed people and it has nothing to do with me, it's just the survey results, we actually saw for I forget exactly, so you guys have to go pull up the slide, I apologize, but the low end, if sort of the bottom tier of content, so sort of pure UGC, I don't know what we call it, but the lowest end content was typically $0 to $5 CPM. The middle grade content, which included like semi-professional or like small clips of professionally produced content or whatever, was, I think, the CPMs ranged they were in the $10 to $20 range. And I don't remember, you can go look more specifically at what the results were. And for sort of TV quality or professionally, produced premium content, the CPMs were obviously north of $20, so $20 to $30. Those were just averages, and they were stated by respondents in the industry. Both publishers and brands got to comment on what they actually thought the CPMs were, and this is what they said.
All right. So I want to talk a little bit about, we're talking about exchanges. I want to talk a little about video ad networks. So over the last few years, we've seen the emergence of a few really big video ad networks, a lot of players in the space. Interestingly, most of the video ad networks are totally new startups. They didn't rise from existing display networks. And if you go and look in Comscore at the top 10 streams of ad views, it's dominated by networks. You have the Adapt Exchange, you have the Brightroll Exchange. I think CBS and Hulu are the only, media companies in there, and everyone else is an ad exchange or an ad network. What do you guys, so if premium content is really leading the pitch, how do you explain the success of the video ad networks out there now that are driving so many of the advertising streams?
So I'll talk a little bit about that. I mean, I really believe that there's two big pieces to a plan, and it's definitely the ad networks for the reach, and it's definitely the premium content for the brand awareness and becoming a part of the conversation. MTV networks, just across our music entertainment properties, has over 140 million Facebook fans that we program to. So it's not just our core sites, but we reach a mass audience who's really engaged. So I do believe that there's room for both, but they solve different problems.
And they're not in competition either, right? I mean, we work with all the ad networks. We definitely rely on them, and they provide a valuable piece of the ecosystem to us to, provide liquidity when we are unable to, fill our own inventory ourselves. I mean, with YouTube, IGN has launched its own kind of YouTube channels, and we've become, quite big on YouTube. With that large amount of inventory, we really are reliant on ad networks to help us fill that.
Yeah, same here. I mean, we generally sell, especially Q4, most of what's available to us that we consider premium inventory. When we don't, we backfill it, and we don't view it as competition. We're happy to take the money.
And do you guys worry at all about ad networks driving down CPMs, or do you view it as there's a recognition that if an advertiser wants to really be guaranteed that they're on your site and know where they're going, they need to buy direct from you, and a network is not going to deliver them that same sort of guarantee?
Yeah, I mean, definitely for us.
And on the exchange, would you share what percentage of streams being bought are being bought from networks instead of being bought directly from agencies?
Right, so we have two sides of our business, the sell side and the buy side. So on the sell side of the business, the streams all come directly from publishers. Right. We don't work together with aggregators because it is not safe enough. Like, we don't know where the inventory is coming from. On the buy side of our business, we do serve everyone who buys media. So we do serve agencies and brands directly. This is a significant chunk of our business. It's, roughly half or something. We also do work with trading desks. We work with DSPs, and we work with ad networks. So basically, anyone's welcome to buy on an exchange, right? That's the thing about an exchange. It's totally open. I don't think I can share specific numbers, but I can tell you that early on in the exchange's history, networks were the primary buyers. And I think that's actually true of the history of display exchanges as well. And the reason being that those are the guys that are already aggregating inventory together. They already have demand that they've already gone and sold, and they're scrambling at times to figure out how to deliver it on the sell side of their businesses. So they're going and looking for excess inventory, and an exchange is a very convenient place to go find it. So that was an immediate source of demand for the Adapt TV exchange or the Adapt TV marketplace as it started. Later, sort of the evolution has been, I think, that agencies are getting more comfortable with the notion of exchanges and what they provide, and they're also getting more sophisticated in their ability to use programmatic buying tools, like to work with DSPs, for example, to be able to bid on exchanges in a programmatic way. It requires a bit of sophistication. So as agencies, I think, have been getting more sophisticated, they've been buying more on the Adapt TV marketplace, and it's been an increasing share of our revenue.
All right. So Sharon and Bernard, you both started talking a little bit about distribution and syndication. I'm interested to talk about that a little bit. So I think all three of you I know are doing a good amount of distribution of your video content to different places. The first thing I'd be interested to know is, I mean, I think in general when you're distributing video content, there's the value proposition can be any of a few things, right? I think it can be a revenue opportunity. It can be a marketing opportunity to get your brand out there. You can do some distribution where you're getting direct traffic. I'm interested to know what's your core goal, and maybe there's more than one, but what's really driving your distribution strategy? What are you looking to get out of it, out of those three things, or maybe other value you get out of it as well?
For us at IGN, I mean, it's probably the first two things, probably, you know, the marketing and the monetization. I think that, you know, we've come to the realization that, you know, we need to take our content to where the audience is. And, you know, there's very little cannibalization by doing that. And so, you know, we've done deals with, you know, 5 Men, we've done, you know, YouTube, Xbox Live, and we've taken our content and just, you know, repurposed it. And the syndication game has really worked out for us. And, you know, in the beginning, you know, several years ago, there wasn't that much money in it for us. But as those audiences have grown and as those platforms have grown in monetization, it's really paid off.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same. The other place that we really use is social. I mean, we program to social, and that's how we syndicate a lot of our content. But that's also how our users syndicate content for us. So it's really more of a viral thing rather than just going out and purchasing it. That's been really, really successful for us.
And are you selling into those streams? So if when you have users sharing videos on Facebook or other, you know, through other social sharing, and the video's not living on your site, and it's not necessarily living in YouTube, well, YouTube's a bad example for you guys, but it's not living, you know, on a syndication partner site, it's just out there and viral. Are you serving ads into those streams?
In some places, but for us, it's sponsorships and creating custom content for an advertiser around a cultural moment like the VMAs. You know, if Lady Gaga's eating a taco on stage and we syndicate that across our Facebook pages, that's great for Taco Bell and they're a sponsor. But
So part of your sales pitch is, you know, this can live within our sites, we might have some partners that can live on, but also this is going to go viral, this is going to be social, and your brand's going to be associated with it.
yeah, and that works really well for studios as well. I mean, I work a lot of entertainment business out here, of course, and you know they're coming to us to syndicate a trailer launch, right? And they can't get enough of that social audience because the response when you put a trailer on there that's exclusive to our networks and is great for that audience, it's just incredible.
And oh, sorry, go
And
ahead,
for us,
Bernard.
we're selling directly into our syndication partners as well. I mean, we're so consistently sold out on our owned and operated properties that we're really fortunate to have partners, you know, such as YouTube, such as 5 Men, that have allowed us to sell into that inventory. And as long as the audiences and the views are there in kind of a critical mass, then it is a pretty easy thing for us to sell into.
And how are you, when you guys are selling your syndicated video views, are you generally able to sell it as one package with one CPM? Is it tiered? Are you sometimes getting a higher, more premium CPM on your own sites and kind of a different deal when you're syndicating out to other sites?
Yeah, I mean, we have tiers. It just really depends on what the client's looking for. I think that it goes back to the question of, you know, does the client need to know where the content is being run? Because At least when they buy with us, they know what the content is all about. They know that there's that consistency there. But as you go to broader and broader syndication, we have some partners that you're not quite sure where that exact content is going to show up, and that's where I think the CPMs get diluted a little bit.
And what do you guys see, just one last question about syndication, so you're going out, you have your content, it's the same content that's going to live on other sites. Are advertisers asking a lot of questions about the demographic makeup of sites that you're syndicating to, or are they looking at it and more that they want to be associated with the content and trusting that more on a contextual basis that the audience for your videos on other sites is going to be similar enough to the audience on your own site that they're comfortable with the buy?
Yeah, for us, we focus on the demo of our owned and operated sites, and then YouTube because it's such a significant part of the overall picture. And those audiences, luckily for us, are extremely similar and have very little overlap. So it is really a reach play for us, and that's probably as far as the conversation goes. We're just so concentrated in this one demo that our advertisers tend to get what they need.
Yeah, all right. So, I think everyone's talking about you need more inventory. You're selling out the inventory. There's a scarcity of inventory for good video content. So if you look at the market continues to grow at a really significant rate. So I have some numbers from eMarketer. So 2010, the online video ad spend was $1.4 billion. 2011, $2.2 billion. Next year it's supposed to grow to $3.1 billion, up to $7.1 billion in 2015. So basically over the next 3 years, the ad spend should increase about 250% according to current estimates. We're hearing that it's not a situation where there's a significant amount of premium inventory that's available now. So my question is, where are these dollars going to go? Are CPMs going to triple? Is the amount of inventory going to increase by 250%? Are we going to find a way to make some inventory that we can't monetize now monetizable? Where's it going to go?
It's all going to be spent on exchanges. No. I think CPMs are actually on from what I can see, is sort of a gradual uphill trend. I don't see, we keep hearing that at some point CPMs are going to drop because they're still irrationally high relative to broadcast and so on. I don't see that happening, but it may happen in the future. But I also don't see them tripling. It's hard to imagine. Because at the end of the day, CPM is determined by what's the value to the brand, right, to the advertiser. In terms of what, I do think that brands are going to continue to grow more comfortable with the variety of content. It's obviously, I think there's always a special place for premium content, no question. But I think that more and more of the dollars will be happy. For example, with YouTube. So when you look at the ComScore today, and you look at where all the viewing is happening, and I think this panel is very acutely aware, I don't know if you guys are, about half of all video viewing in the US happens on YouTube. It's like, I think there's, I don't know, my numbers are like a couple months out of date, but it's like...
It's 35, you generally see about 35 to 40 million US content views a month.
35 billion, right?
Right,
Yeah.
it's like Dr. Evil. $1 million.
Yeah.
35 billion to 40 billion, not million. And it's about, I think it's about 18 billion are on YouTube.
Sounds right. So it's about half on YouTube, and then there's everything else, right? And that everything else includes MTV, includes IGN, includes Blip, includes all the sites inside Adapt TV, and so on. So one elephant in the room, and I don't have a prediction for it per se, is that YouTube is sitting there largely unmonetized. I know they do sell ads on their impressions, but it's very low ad load at the moment. We think of it as a giant undifferentiated mass of UGC. Not the case, right? I mean, here we have Bernard telling me that a huge amount of his traffic on IGN, like professionally produced content, is on YouTube. Bernard is not alone, right? That's the case for many of the TV broadcasters and other sort of made for internet. There's whole networks that have launched and run on YouTube. I mean, we all know about Next New Networks, but they're not the only ones. There's several of them. So there's tons of good brand safe content sitting there, largely unmonetized or with a very low ad load. One thing that's going to happen is a lot of that's going to get filled up with ads, and the prices for those ads, which are right now very, very low, you can buy some of that inventory on Google's Ad Exchange, DoubleClick Ad Exchange. But you know, many people aren't. Actually, supply is way out of whack with demand there. So as demand comes up, actually, you know, I think that could account for it right there.
What do the rest of you think?
What I think, you know, a lot of the, it's the different, you have to look at the different creatives, right? So pre-roll is in high demand and is very sold out, but there's other units that are, I think when you're talking about unmonetized stuff on YouTube, it's not, you know, given their frequency caps and everything else, pre-rolls are actually pretty sold relative to their delivery rules. It's overlays and other display type units that you're not seeing filled. And what we're looking at a lot is what are the units that engage consumers, and possibly there are better units for a better user experience that keep people viewing videos longer without throwing pre-rolls in front of them every time they show up. Maybe they become more of a fanatic of a show, maybe they spend more time viewing online video, and then you can sort of work them into tolerating more ads because they're in love with the content or because they want to be in front of something specific.
And I think, you know, I agree with Tag that, you know, YouTube takes a big share of that lift. I think that, you know, exchanges really help facilitate the liquidity, but from what I've seen, at least when it comes to IGN, is that our inventory clears at a fairly low rate, and I see that coming up as well. I think the last piece of where that lift is going to come from is probably international. You know, we've got localized sales teams in the UK and Australia, but there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of ground out there that we haven't covered yet, and a lot of that inventory, especially on YouTube, doesn't get sold through, and you know that could be where some of that growth is.
Don't forget the increase in viewership too. I mean, I don't know what those numbers are, but you know, my guess is that online video viewing could easily double in that time period that you're talking about. You know, if today's teenagers, you know, become adults, and you know, the next group of teenagers does the same thing. Well, there you've sort of doubled it too. Like, how many YouTube videos does your average teenager consume in a day? It's a very large number.
I think it's platforms. So mobile, iPad, I see a lot of dollars shifting there. I read some stat that, you know, in 2015, more mobile phones will enter the web than, you know, people going on the internet through their computers. So, I mean, we have to be where the audience is, and I believe it's mostly on new platforms.
Interesting. All right, I think we have about 10 minutes left, so we're going to start taking any questions from the audience.
Hi there. You guys mentioned YouTube. Does it freak you out that they're starting to charge based on views and allow users to skip on ads? I mean, if you think of like Google's dominance in search with AdSense and AdWords, it's because they allow people to pay per click, so they siphon a lot of money. I know it's a different kind of advertiser, I get that. But I mean, MTV, I know you guys are not on YouTube, IGN, et cetera, you can't possibly be happy about that because generally speaking, users don't like ads. So, you know, like, what are your thoughts on that basically?
Well, for us, the content that we put out there is exclusive to our properties, so that's the only place they can get it.
Great point, but still the impact on overall CPMs, if an advertiser can get, you guys have great brands, you guys have great products, but if an advertiser can reach, let's say instead of MTV, Vivo, or even instead of IGN, like Machinima, et cetera, like, isn't that a big threat that Google's gonna basically pummel the CPM model away into a CPV model, et cetera, and bring down potentially the revenue you guys could make?
I don't think so, because for us, it's programming of cultural moments. You're not going to get a cultural moment off a video on YouTube. I mean, you know, music videos from Vivo, they're a commodity at this point, and they're great. I think they definitely belong somewhere in the plan, but for us, we still have such unique exclusive content, and we are, you know, we create the stories, and that's sort of the only place you can get it is within our sites and our social platforms. So I guess no.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say one thing about that model is I don't know exactly what YouTube's model is, but there's a lot of models out there now where it's cost per completed ad, and you're giving the user the ability to skip through it, but you're not charging them the same CPM for that completed ad as you would. And a lot of it, frankly, is publishers or networks doing a backwards calculation of what their completion rate is, and then you can, pitch it to an advertiser, which is fair, is you're only going to pay for someone watching your entire advertisement. I don't think we're going to switch, I don't think we're seeing a shift of switching to a model of you're paying the same CPM, but only getting paid for a completed view where the person doesn't skip instead of initiation.
I also think that that's when you start putting, is content, king. That's when you start putting it to the test, right? I think that, me at IGN I'm not on the sales side, so, my sales folks will have a completely different answer probably, but, for me, I'm seeing extremely high pre-roll complete rates across our network, 88%, 90% compared to industry averages of 50%. So, if it kind of moves in that direction, I think that, speaking selfishly, I think that we're in a pretty good position. I think that, if that's an indication of is content king, I think that that's where the premium content providers might actually come out ahead.
And also, it's nice to see that the panel for All Night has been in complete agreement that their own businesses are completely awesome. I think it's no arguments on that. I think that's been nice.
So, Rich, let me say one more thing in response to this question. I think it's a great question. I would put to you this. Google has publicly announced, right, that they've taken this TrueView model and they've, I don't know what the numbers are, but they've ramped it hugely in the last year or even 6 months. And my question to you is this. Would they be ramping it massively if it didn't, increase their revenue per video viewing session or per video view? In other words, yes, they may only be charging on a smaller set of the events, the ones where the user didn't skip, but my guess is that they're charging more than enough to compensate for that, so that at the end of the day, it makes more money. We don't know.
They kind of have the market share thing locked up right now. It's a
Yeah, no. So it's good. So Google can always play that game, right? They can always choose. They have a lot of capital. They can always choose to try to be anti-competitive if they want to. But I don't think that's what's going on here. I think it's probably actually something advertisers really love and want to buy this way, and they're probably willing to pay for it. And if it turns out to be a really dominant, successful pricing strategy, I for one have no problem with it. Any pricing strategy that works and helps increase revenue overall for my organization, I'm happy with. And if it creates a better user experience at the same time, great.
And I think, Google's trying to reach market equilibrium, right? I mean, they want the, kind of highest engagement, content to kind of win out. They also want the highest or best targeted ad to win out at the end of the day, right? So if you've got the right ad for the right customer or the right viewer at that time, they're actually going to watch the whole ad and they won't skip it. And I think that that's some of the testing that YouTube has done has borne that out.
And the people who actually do skip the ads and don't want to watch them actually engage with the ad more than if they were going to let it go by anyway. So you're actually, getting them more engaged and remembering your brand.
Maybe not in the most positive light.
But,
Yeah, we had many thousands of items on YouTube. We're seen by close to 1 billion people. But we took off most of the content because we found out that they pay very low rates, ridiculously low rates. And actually, the content gets cheaper. It gets very cheap when it's on YouTube because nobody wants to syndicate the content from us, saying it's available for free on YouTube. Also, content owners thought that their content is shown for free because they couldn't figure out that it's actually monetized. So, just want to get your thoughts about that.
So I'm sorry, is the question, if you're distributing your content to YouTube, does that create a roadblock to being able to distribute your content to other publishers because they can just easily go to YouTube and embed those videos?
Well, the question is, don't you think that you cheapen your product by putting it on YouTube as much as it's got all these views? You get very little money for the ads.
Sharon, do you want to answer that question? Well,
I think yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we've found the opposite to be true. I think that, like I was saying before, we found that we have a very, almost identical demographic and audience mix on YouTube, but it's different than what we've found on our owned and operated we're 100% ad supported anyways on our owned and operated, and we're able to sustain those CPMs across into YouTube. So we found it to be pretty successful. I mean, we're not trying to license our content to anyone for a fee anyways. So everything that we do is pretty much ad supported. And so that model fits pretty well.
Yeah, and YouTube's a great place to, if you actually come across a show there, there's opportunities to engage with that user and get them interested in your programming and potentially window off of YouTube where, it's not a zero-sum game where they're either watching off YouTube or on your site. You can actually extend your audience, extend your reach, and get people who are truly interested in coming back and looking at more of your shows and potentially going off YouTube and looking at your sites as well if there's more information there, something else to see.
Time for one last question. Any last question? All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you.